Hello, everyone. The story of Jazz Jennings, the young woman who became one of the most visible transgender figures in modern media through her reality TV show I Am Jazz, is one filled with courage, controversy, triumph, and tragedy, a journey that has captured the world's attention while exposing the often unseen pain behind living one's truth under the glare of public scrutiny. From the time she was a small child, Jazz seemed destined for a spotlight she never asked for, but courageously embraced, using her voice to advocate for transgender rights and acceptance. Yet, as the years went on, the same fame that made her a symbol of progress also became a source of enormous pressure, judgment, and emotional exhaustion. Behind the smiling TV persona and inspirational speeches was a young woman quietly battling depression, anxiety, physical health complications, and the crushing weight of being a global representative for an entire community at just a tender age. The truth about Jazz Jennings's struggles, her surgeries, mental health battles, and the internal conflict between public expectation and personal peace reveals a heartbreakingly human story that shocked even her most devoted supporters. Jazz Jennings was born in 2000 in South Florida to supportive parents, Greg and Jeanette Jennings. From the age of 2, Jazz insisted she was a girl despite being assigned male at birth. Her parents, unsure of what to do, sought medical guidance, eventually becoming advocates themselves for transgender youth. By the time Jazz was 6, she had become one of the youngest publicly documented transgender children in the world, appearing on 2020 with Barbara Walters in 2007. That interview changed everything. Overnight, Jazz became a national sensation, praised for her innocence and bravery, but also thrust into an intense media storm she was far too young to understand. While many hailed her as a pioneer, others hurled cruel attacks, branding her family irresponsible for allowing a child to transition. But Jazz's confidence and the support of her family kept her moving forward, and by her teenage years, she was not only an activist but also an author, YouTuber, and reality TV star. In 2015, TLC premiered I Am Jazz, a reality series that followed Jazz's journey through adolescence as a transgender teen navigating school, friendships, dating, and most notably, her medical transition. The show received critical acclaim for its honesty and sensitivity, but behind the cameras, Jazz's struggles were escalating. Transitioning wasn't a simple or smooth process. It was riddled with complications, both physical and emotional. She openly shared her struggles with body dysphoria, weight gain, and the grueling process of preparing for gender confirmation surgery. But what few realized was that the stress of constantly being a public example began taking a devastating toll on her mental health. Jazz revealed that she suffered from depression and binge eating disorder, using food as a coping mechanism to handle the intense anxiety of her highly public life. Her body began to change drastically, and she admitted to feeling trapped between the image of perfect trans role model and the reality of being a young woman who was still figuring out who she was. Then came one of the most difficult chapters of her life: the surgeries. Jazz underwent her first gender confirmation surgery in 2018, but what was supposed to be a defining and affirming moment quickly turned into a nightmare. The surgery was far more complicated than expected due to years of hormone blockers that stunted her development, leaving surgeons with little tissue to work with. Jazz described the procedure as a physical and emotional ordeal, admitting in later interviews that the pain and trauma left her questioning everything. Even worse, complications from the first operation forced her to undergo multiple corrective surgeries, at least 3 by her own account. "I just wanted to feel complete," she said tearfully in one episode, but it's been one setback after another. For many fans who had followed her journey with admiration, these revelations were heartbreaking. The young woman who once symbolized hope for trans youth everywhere was now confronting the brutal reality of a medical process that had taken a serious toll on her health and spirit. As she transitioned into adulthood, Jazz continued to share her struggles with honesty. In later seasons of I Am Jazz, viewers watched as she dealt with severe depression, anxiety, and the ongoing battle with spiraled to the point that she took a break from Harvard University, where she had been accepted with pride and excitement, to focus on recovery. I needed to take care of me, she explained in a vulnerable moment. But stepping back from school also exposed how much her life had been shaped by expectation, both from fans who saw her as an inspiration and from critics who scrutinized her every move. Social media became a cruel battlefield for Jazz, as online trolls and even political commentators targeted her and her family with relentless hate, claiming she was being exploited or manipulated. It was an unending cycle of judgment and pain that made her question whether the visibility she once embraced was worth the cost. Jazz's relationship with her family also became strained under the immense pressure. Her mother, Jeanette, who had been her biggest advocate and protector, began clashing with Jazz on camera about her health and life choices. While their love was undeniable, the dynamic often appeared emotionally charged, revealing just how exhausting it was to constantly live life under a microscope. Jazz's siblings, too, expressed frustration about the way their families' lives revolved around her struggles. The very show that was meant to highlight acceptance had become, in many ways, a source of family tension and fatigue. Jazz herself admitted feeling overwhelmed by guilt, saying she often worried that her problems had taken a toll on everyone around her. By her early 20s, Jazz was publicly struggling to reconcile her image with her reality. In interviews, she confessed to feeling lost and disconnected from herself. "Sometimes I feel like I don't even know who Jazz is anymore," she said in one heartbreaking confession. Despite all the surgeries, fame, and achievements, she still battled deep-seated insecurities about her body and identity. The once bright optimism that had defined her early years seemed replaced by exhaustion. Fans who had followed her from childhood began expressing concern online, saying she looked sad and withdrawn. Her openness about her weight struggles, eating disorder, and body image issues struck a chord with many. But it also made people realize just how heavy the burden of representation had been for her. What makes Jazz's story so tragic isn't just the physical and emotional pain she's endured. It's the way her life became a mirror for society's conflicting attitudes about gender, identity, and acceptance. From a very young age, she was placed on a pedestal as the perfect trans role model, but that perfection was impossible to maintain. Every decision she made, every hairstyle, every outfit, every comment, was dissected by millions. Supporters praised her bravery, while critics accused her of being used by an agenda. Through it all, Jazz remained publicly gracious, but privately, she confessed that the pressure often made her feel like she couldn't breathe. "People forget that I'm human," she once said. "They see me as a symbol, not a person." Today, Jazz Jennings continues to advocate for trans rights, but she's also learning to prioritize her mental health above everything else. She's spoken about therapy, self-acceptance, and her desire to find happiness outside of fame. In many ways, her story has evolved from one of trailblazing activism to one of resilience and healing. She no longer strives to be the perfect example, but rather a real one, flawed, emotional, and courageous in her vulnerability. For her fans, that authenticity has become even more inspiring than the image she once carried. Yet, there's no denying that her journey has been filled with heartbreak, sacrifices, and pain that most people can't imagine. The tragic truth of Jazz Jennings' story is that while she helped millions understand what it means to be transgender, she also exposed how brutal and isolating it can be. to live under constant public scrutiny. From a little girl fighting to be seen as herself, to a young woman battling to reclaim her sense of peace, Jazz's life reminds us that even the strongest voices can break under pressure. Her courage remains undeniable, but it came at a price paid in sleepless nights, tears behind closed doors, and years of struggling to love the reflection in the mirror. In the end, the real Jazz Jennings isn't just the smiling activist on TV. She's a human being who dared to live her truth in a world that wasn't always kind. And while her journey has been marked by tragedy, it's also a testament to resilience, the story of someone who kept fighting for herself, even when the world expected her to be someone else. Thanks for watching.